welcome to our webinar, Developing an Innovative LIMS System in Genomic Diagnostic Laboratories. So we are looking forward to do this webinar together with you. And I see so many people joining from various countries. So we are looking forward for great interactive webinar. As always, I would like to proceed with instructions. As we would like our webinar to be interactive, we are looking forward to your questions and comments, and we are communicating with you together via our Q&A section. So you can write your comments, questions, suggestions during the webinar, so that afterwards we have 15 minutes to discuss all what you have asked to us. So you simply press Q&A section, and then you type your question in that field, and then you press send. And we are always obtaining so many questions from you, and whatever we are not managing to answer during the webinar, we're happy to communicate with you afterwards online. And I would like to introduce our speaker today is Dr. Gabriela Oprea. She has done her PhD in biology in University of Cologne in Germany. She is originally from Romania, and she's active in human genetic field more than 15 years. She developed many pipelines for analyzing genetic data, and she has also many high-rated publications in renowned journals. And currently, Dr. Gabriela Oprea is Chief Data Officer in Arcensus and is responsible for all data analysis of our whole genome sequencing and issuing medical reports to us. And we're really looking forward to the webinar with Gabriela. I would like to share some news that the next webinar will be presented by Dr. Yoon, and it will be about clinical picture of rare diseases in South Asia. So it will take place 25th of January, and we're all looking forward for you to join and to welcome our colleague, Dr. Yoon. And as always, we're happy to share with you certificates. So please fill all your details in the form, and then we will deliver you certificates within 2 weeks to all of you. Thank you very much. So I would like to welcome Gabriela. And I'm also looking forward for all your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ola, for your kind introduction. Very welcome as well from my side. So today we are going to discuss about a software which is a must in every lab, which would like to employ NGS sequencing. So therefore today I'm going to talk about LIMS, the Laboratory Information Management System, and the specific challenges we have encountered in the genomic diagnostic and our solution to encounter all of them. So, okay, so on the next slide, I'm going then to come to some general considerations. So usually whenever we talk about genomic diagnostic, genomic testing, we need to take into consideration a number of aspects. On one side, it's about methods and technologies, or even the provider we would like to work with. The technology, of course, is diverse. You can decide from many different types of technology and methods. It's about IT consideration. It's about workforce of the personnel you have or you consider to hire in order to support the end-to-end process. It's about bioinformatics consideration, how you are going to report the results or the findings you identify during the genetic testing. It's about as well how you plan to continuously improve, and not forget about the regulation and accreditation topics. At the end, all this will impact the overall infrastructure set up considerations. So generally speaking, when we talk about genomic sequencing, we are talking about a multi-step complex process. Everything will start as here represented with the sample. The sample, of course, is as well part of the considerations, because you have to understand what kind of samples are you going to use: blood, swab, saliva, tissues, and so on. The sample has to be then documented. And here it's represented under this digital documentation. Afterwards, you have to prepare it. And after you prepare it, you need to sequence. So you need as well to consider the platform you are going to use to generate data. Then it's about pipeline, the bioinformatics pipeline, which is directly impacted by the method or technology you are going to approach and the sample you are going to receive. This step is going to be followed by analysis and interpretation. So you have somehow to visualize all the data which is coming from machine and going through the pipeline. You need a kind of visualization in order to work with, to see the variants, to check their quality, and to interpret them in the clinical context. At the end, you have to as well understand how you're going to report these findings, and then sending the report to the physician. During this process, as here represented, you may need to require different tools and different skills. So if we now look at the skills you need, so for sample receiver, you may consider to have a technician or a receptionist. It really depends on the size of the lab or company you have. For digital documentation, it is very important to have scientists and clinical data managers in order to ensure the quality of the data which is provided by the patient or physician. For sample preparation, you will need as well scientists, lab technicians, bioinformaticians. Again, it really depends on the methods, the technology, the end-to-end procedure you are going to set it up. For sequencing itself, you may require scientists, lab technicians, and bioinformaticians. And once we shift to the dry lab part, you are going to need bioinformaticians. For analysis and interpretation, you are going to need scientists, human geneticists, medical experts, which are as well going to support the clinical report generation. And then report sending can be taken over by receptionists or clinical data managers. So during this process, complex process, several tools might be required. For sample retrieval, the most of the companies, labs will have portals or LIMS systems. When we talk about digital documentation, it's again, it might be part of the portal, part of the LIMS, but some companies will imply a LIS system, which means laboratory information system. For sample preparation, you may require a LIMS or a such a called wet lab LIMS. It really depends again on the complexity of the infrastructure you require. But in the same time, to automatize some processes, you may need electronic lab books or lab execution systems. So it really depends on the intention you plan. For the sequencing itself, you may require again wet lab LIMS and some sequencing related software. For bioinformatics pipeline is dependent on the entire approach you consider, and you might require minimum 50 different tools, software, databases to have them together. And then it's about how you are going to visualize. So we call it visualization and interpretation tool. And then consideration for reporting. Are you going to use the LIMS system for it? Are you going maybe to use the visualization interpretation tool or just a reporting software? At the end, it's about how you're going to share the findings to the physician, and the most of the used tools are represented by portals and LIMS. So you see that this is a very complex process. And if we now focus on LIMS itself as core features, the LIMS usually is used for data centralization, for sample management and tracking, for workflow management, protocol execution, instrument integration, task allocation, storage or equipment integration, reporting, and some of them even have quotation and invoicing. So knowing how complex this process is, we at Arcensus had an approach in order to decide how are we going to set it up. And here I have some important consideration when we started almost 2 years ago, our operational lab. So what we knew, it was that NGS sequencing has become commodity and routine, that there are several cloud-based solutions allowing rapid data transfer from instruments to pipeline. That still to understand the data we generate is a challenge in the entire workflow, that clinicians have challenges to select the appropriate product technology. So if you ask a clinician which is the best technology, for sure they're going to think and have a way to identify the best product or not. I'm going to come to this later. Usually a case will require several tests until diagnosis is clarified, which is time and cost inefficient. We knew that our expertise, our value is the knowledge and the expertise in the genetic diagnosis field. And at the same time, we knew there is one technology which we call it one-fitted-all product. And thus, this charge of the clinician to select the appropriate product is now gone. And this technology is a whole genome sequencing. And of course, maybe as well due to Corona, genetic testing receives more and more awareness. The turnaround time is becoming more and more sensitive. And in the same time, easy at home sampling, it is more accepted and appreciated. And as knowledge, our knowledge in the genetic field changes rapidly, there is a high need to keep every single individual up to date. So these were for us facts, which at the end led us to our own infrastructure setup. So since we knew that the sequencing itself is commodity and routine, we decided to outsource. That's why the sample preparation, the sequencing itself, and partially the first steps of the bioinformatics processing, like alignment, variant calling, have been outsourced. At Arcensus, what we kept, it was the portal, the physician, the patient portal, where we keep all the information, the documentation in a structured way, organized way. And then we knew we will require a LIMS. We call it dry lab LIMS because we have decided to outsource the wet lab LIMS, and therefore we said we are going to keep internally that expertise, that knowledge we require, meaning from the bioinformatics pipeline to reporting. And the raw data we receive from our partner, we are going to process inside with our knowledge we continuously get, and then proceed the analysis and interpretation. The clinical report creation is as well part of the dry LIMS we have initially thought. So as you can see here, at the end of our census, we are going to have a portal as a dry lab LIMS. And therefore today I'm going to talk about dry lab LIMS and how we successfully succeeded to develop our own solution and those increase efficiency, productivity, quality, and even now open the room for automation. So in 2021, we had specific requirements for our LIMS system. We knew it has to be integrated in our entire WGS workflow. We knew that it has to be easy configurable and should focus on the bioinformatics and reporting aspects. We knew we required to manage scientific master data. And at the same time, since we talk about our knowledge, which rapidly changes, that we need and we must support with our tool as well the reanalysis process. In the same time, to allocate tasks, to prioritize as well samples, to have on-the-fly text block or statement generations. I'm going to come as well at the end of my presentation to this topic. While generating the clinical report, to use different diverse layouts for all mutation types we can detect, and for all types of finding we can as well identify from primary, preventive, carrier pharmacogenomics. And at the end, this tool from beginning had to be compatible with scaling and automation at Arcensus. And as maybe all of you already aware, statistics, even though you are talking operational statistics or reporting or about scientific statistic or reporting, is as well a must, as you like to know real time which step, which sample is. So how did we decide to build our own LIMS system? So we had on our definitely a roadmap. We need to evaluate pros and cons to buy or to build your own LIMS system. There are different advantages of the commercial LIMS system, like standard functionality, core features. Many of them provide configuration and customization into the service, the support, the time from implementation. If you talk about building your own, well, there are coming some advantages, especially if you have unique or specific requirements. And the development, the maintenance, you can internally control. And at the same time, you keep this flexibility and the ability to update, adapt based on the strategic and business needs. And we know as well there are many free and open source LIMS available. As cons for commercial LIMS, you still need to understand the time to evaluate and assess is quite long. There are so many different models and costs they provide. Sometimes, even though they say it's an easy, user-friendly tool, you may still have some issues until you get to feel confident. And the maintenance development cost will impact at the end the overall price to pay. As cons to build your own LIMS, it's about development, the time you need as well to develop and customize it. So we, as I said, we started to be operational in March 2021. We have initially identified some commercial LIMS solutions, but what we did in 2021, it was somehow to fail in testing customized features we require from the commercial LIMS. So since we lost a lot of time, like identifying, evaluating, then finding a provider, going through the customization and configuration development, then we understood it might be somehow difficult to provide, even though we had clear, good user requirement specification, an external provider which can implement these features only for us. So then we started to have some decision criteria. So if we had very good requirements in-house and clear understanding of how we like to start, where we like to go, because you need as well to understand in the future if this tool is going to match your needs. And then to understand, do you have the development skills in-house? Do you know about the workflows you want to implement, the interdependencies? And if you can answer yes to all these questions, and then you have the final question from the financial part, can you build it cost effectively? Then, of course, the next question is, okay, if I can build it in a very cost efficient manner, can I support it in a long term? And if yes, then the decision for us, it was then build it. So this is how we started then to decide, let's build our own LIMS. So our own LIMS is called ArchieLIMS, which has a modular system where we have operational modules and master data modules. It's developed on Django framework version 4.0 framework. The database storage is based on PostgreSQL database, which is hosted on Amazon Cloud. Communicates, so it's integrated into the process via API with the portal and with a variant visualization tool. And since we start developing it under continuous development and optimization, you might now ask, why is this name? Why ArchieLIMS? So our mascot at Arcensus is represented by our nice elephant, Archie. And some facts, interesting facts about the elephant is that it's the world's largest land animal. Depending on its species, they can typically live between 48 to 80 years. They have a very thin skin, almost 2.5 centimeter thick. They're constantly eating. And a baby elephant can stand within 20 minutes of birth. And really interesting, it's now, I would say, well accepted and studied that an elephant never forgets. But at the same time, it's a very interesting genetic fact. And the genetic fact is that elephants do not, in fact, get cancer because they have 40 copies of this p53 genes, which is a tumor suppressor. So having this mascot and knowing the power of the elephants, we name it ArchieLIMS. So how it looks like. So what I'm showing now is almost 1 year development time. So after we log in, we are going to have on the homepage some statistics. Here I have only the sample overview, so we'll see how the number of samples during the months grow. Then we will see how many orders, how many patients, how many tasks, how many reports we issued, and so on. On the left side, on the blue color, we're going to see different modules. There are going to be, and I'm going to show to you as well later, in sub-modules, but that means we have these modules and we know what kind of information we find in every module. And at the same time, we have developed view option in order to use our search easy and very convenient for us. So here is one module which we call it QC WGS Mapping. So meaning after we deliver the data and the data will go through the pipeline, we will keep here for every single sample we analyze all the WGS so-called metrics. So we'll know the alignment, to the human genome and all the other whole genome sequencing methods which we require to understand if the sequencing worked or not. And we have a color code to understand if we have, since it's Arcensus, we are using swabs for whole genome sequencing, if we have any bacterial contamination, which is in this column mapped with percentage, and I have selected here some samples where you will see, based on the quality of the mapping, the code. Red means contaminated with bacterial DNA. Green means almost like blood, performs free of any bacterial DNA. Here I have such a view of the case assignment. So what we know in the whole genome end-to-end sequencing process is that a reporter which has assigned a report might need a second opinion or might need another look from another person. So what we have implemented as well in our dry LIMS system is these communications. So if the reporter which initially is assigned to the case may require genotype-phenotype correlation, or may require some information, some communication with the technical team from bioinformatics team, for example, or they will require some input from the medical experts, then we can as well use this system to assign another person as a second review. And we document everything in our system, knowing exactly where our samples is in the process. Here, for example, you have such a view of the analysis case assignment table, where you see the first outcome, and in case you are going to have a second result, is this as well documented. I have hidden sensitive information, but this is more or less how it looks like while we are checking the the outcome of every single analysis we perform. important, and you're going to see at the end why all these fragmentary modules are in fact so important to increase the efficiency of and productivity of the reporting. So as I said, this system, our LIMS system, is integrated as well with the variant visualization tool. So every decision what we take in the variant visualization tool automatically is queried in the LIMS system. So in this view, when I want to generate a report, the information for the sample ID or for the sample I want to generate the report is coming automatically from the variant visualization tool. So all the genes which we agreed to have on the report are going to be indicated. A missing feature of the variant visualization tool was to select as which category the variant has to be reported. And you'll see that this has a huge impact on the location, on the report, but as well in the content, what we would like to bring on the report. So from this view, the reporter just have to select the right layout because they know exactly for what kind of analysis is that patient analyzed for. And here to decide if this is a primary finding, a preventive, a carrier finding, pharmacogenomics. And once this is performed here, you will see that once we have here additional, primary, and so on, and we tick the positive report button, we are as well in the background using another module. I just told before about the scientific modules. They're not operational. That means I need text blocks in order to develop and maintain. For us, it's really important because we don't issue a technical report. So for every single gene and variant we identify, we are going to add a lot of information. We talk about gene description, about the disease description, about the management, clinical management of the disease, about clinical trials. So in order to make it faster, at the same time, keep consistency between reports, what we have developed, it was a so-called master data module, which is called scientific master data, where we have on one row one gene disease association. So if I have one gene linked to n diseases, I'm going to have different rows. So this is now, after I press the positive report button in LIMS, this now will run in the background. And here you have one example that you see how the text blocks are summarized and maintained. And once I press the button, I get the report. And what I'm going to show to you, that's why I, at the end, we agreed to have our own solution. You will see that we have a combination of sources for the content. So on our report, we are going to have some text blocks which are coming from different sources. For example, on the report, the patient, the physician, the sample information are coming from the LIMS. But then, based on this connection to the variant visualization tool, based on the category we say, what is primary, what is preventive, what is carrier. Now, on the fly, we are going to generate so-called clinical statements. Recommendations that are still manually done. But at the end, the system run, and based on my input, starts to auto-generate text blocks. Then for every single variant which we report as primary or as preventive, we have these text blocks, right? So now you will see here again, the sources of these text blocks is different. So some of them are going to come from the so-called scientific master data, as here. Some of them are going to be generated on the fly, like variant description, but some of them are going to come from the variant visualization tool, here highlight with in red. And this we do for every single, again, gene which is under primary and preventive. So the tool will know based on the layout we have already implemented where to localize which content. And then it's about how much content is blank. So now, for example, when we have additional finding, like in this table, you'll see that for the additional finding or carrier, we have a tabular format to present it. So no one has to spend manual work and hours to generate pages of the report, this is going to be automatically with the LIMS system we develop in-house. And then for pharmacogenomics, we have as well a different table, different content we are using to show the finding. And at the end are going to come to clinical information, which of course is based on every product we offer. So, which are now my take-home messages? I think it's clear that despite the fact that many and diverse commercial LIMS systems are available, when we have specific or unique requirements, especially how we have for the whole genome sequencing for analysis, reanalysis, it was so difficult and hard to identify parts and go through the testing to the development and successful testing. And then we decided to build our own LIMS, and now we have it. So after almost 1 year of development, we are using it and see the impact on the operational process. So the key step in decision was this clear and detailed requirement specifications. This is a must if you want to build it in-house in a very fast manner, how we did it. You need to have very clear understanding of these specifications, and then to understand how you can build them stepwise in a way that you add more and more automation, that you as well increase more and more the quality of the reports, but in the same time, in a cost-efficient manner. Then it's about the flexibility. So it's about flexibility to assign the modules we have in the system to different workflows. And at the same time, it's about how you are going to use them if you have different variations of the workflow. So if we talk about update reports, we will not require a new order. We will not require a new sample ID, for example. So meaning that all this is already in-house. So we just need an analysis module in order to initiate a new analysis of an existing already patient order sample. The efficiency, productivity, and quality of the analysis and reporting aspects have been continuously improved, and we are still having a lot of things to improve, and we are going to work more and more in order to support the scaling and automation we agreed at Arcensus to have, and at the same time to have operational and scientific statistics which we can extract easily just by going on the homepage and extract the latest and real-time status of the data. So here I would like to thank you to all for the for your kind attention, and if you have questions, more than happy to take them.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. A lot of questions and comments, and I would start with a rather comment and suggestion. So we have a suggestion from Switzerland that, Gabriela, you should build your own course, LIMS in record time, and you will have lots of attendances.
So I have to say here that this was coming up, I would say, intensive experience in the lab, in all the steps of the whole genome sequencing reporting, in the same time, handling so many other software and tools. So, but I'm really happy, and I have as well to thank to my team, because they built it and they did it in such a record time.
Thank you very much. So, brilliant example of developing LIMS in-house. What is the most challenging for you in that process?
So the most challenging, I think, is to transfer your user requirements to the development team, that they understand what you mean, what you want, without any doubt. And one thing I support to do is always communicate with them via mockups. So put your user requirements, put your wishes in a visualization mode that the development team can use it while developing. And at the same time, communicate with them almost on a daily basis. Have a look on the progress, and in case you realize something is not as you want it, tell them.
Thank you very much. Is ArchieLIMS compatible with other platforms, for example, Illumina, Oxford Nanopore, others?
So yes, because it has an API communication, and since we have this feature, can be easily integratable in different other workflows, including with any Illumina, LIMS, Clarity LIMS, whatever the name is, but it is indeed you can integrate it via API. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Also, another question. What would you suggest, purchase a LIMS or develop a new one? We have a small lab with 20, 50 patients per year.
Okay, so for this kind of a volume, it might be, it depends. If you do as well sequencing in-house, it might be already commercial LIMS to think about, but it really depends on the, I would say, scalability. You might think maybe now you have up to 50 patients, but maybe in 2-3 years, if you plan to increase it 10, 100-fold, then I will really make such evaluation, looking into the automation power of the LIMS as well. For a small lab, I would say it's not really, if you don't have IT or if you don't have a development team, maybe then it's better, yes, to use a commercial LIMS.
Thank you very much. Could you please describe how secure the system is?
So our system is secure. So from beginning, we knew that our dry LIMS is just internally accessible. So even though it's a web-based tool, we have in place security and access rights only for our internal employees, meaning no one from outside Arcensus can access it. So it's not accessible, let's put it in this way, for people outside our company.
Thank you very much. Is ArchieLIMS available for purchase?
Not yet.
Thank you very much.
But if you are interested, yeah, if we just can discuss about it.
You can contact us for sure, and we will prepare it for future. What would be your next major steps in maintenance of LIMS, and how would you deal with constant scaling amount of data?
So here we have a nice plan in order to bring more and more master data into the system. So at this moment, for example, we have just a basic PGX, but we are going to extend the pharmacogenomics master data. So we would like now to focus more and more on master data as functionality, operational functionality to there, is to bring more and more disease gene associations, to bring more content, which we can maintain, and as well to bring more on the fly text generation blocks and so on. So this we can do it, but indeed, in order to scale even more, we will need as well to work more on the master data.
Thank you very much. Having that experience in your hand, if you would start now generating LIMS, would you do something different?
I think first I will need to understand the intention of the LIMS. So because there are so many things you can do with the LIMS. And there is always a question, what belongs where? So, for example, we at Arcensus, we already took our decision what stays in portal, what is required only in LIMS, what has to communicate back and forth. So it really depends on the intention of the LIMS. And then, yes, I can decide how to go on. But first I have to understand for the purpose of the LIMS in that context.
Thank you very much. Could you please describe how it is working in Arcensus with medical reports approvals?
Exactly. So I haven't yet today shown that, but I think it's quite easy. I don't have such a screenshot, but more or less it's like in case assignments. So once we are ready, we send for medical approval, and the medical director will see on the top how many are on pending, and then we can anytime see how many are approved. Sometimes it might be that the report will get back the report for some editing, for some changes. This is as well returned to the reporter status. So this is as well implemented and working.
Thank you very much. How do you deal with the following case? The report was issued and then different clinical information is shared with Arcensus. What is the standard process for such events?
So it depends on the clinical information we receive. So what we would do first is to add a new analysis, so like reanalysis, because we have the reanalysis step. So once we have a reanalysis, usually it's a trigger, it's a regular update or reanalysis, or is triggered by a change. And the change, if it's in clinical information, will lead, of course, to reanalysis in the variant visualization tool, just to check if the new clinical information may lead to an additional finding. And if so, we are going to issue an updated report, yeah, based on the new delivered information. But this is doable and is working.
Thank you very much. That was already answered, but it would be nice to repeat it again. So the customers do not have any direct access to LIMS, correct?
Correct.
So we have an additional system just toward our portal where it's a customer interface, and then these data are transferred to. We have some personal questions. So Gabriela, have you done your genome?
Yes, and not only for me, for my entire family.
Maybe Gabriela has given a nice webinar about this, but maybe Gabriela, you can comment 2-3 sentences about, because there are more than one questions about this topic.
So I did my own genome, right? I have findings. I just put the findings in the other webinar, so it was not a negative finding, and of course, for me, it was as well important to understand how this will impact my daughter. So as well sequence my daughter, and I think I'm really happy because we did it, because now we are informed, and decisions are in our hands how we move forward. But I will always say, don't be afraid, because the truth is anyway there. If you want to see it or not, it's a different story. But I think it's better to be informed. This is my personal answer to the personal question.
Thank you very much. There are lots of questions. I try to pick some. So one question. So your laboratory is accredited. So how easy it was to accredit laboratory with their LIMS that is internally developed? Could you give us any tips?
Well, I would say it's easy if you know what you need to do. So meaning documentation. And again, documentation, meaning from beginning, you have to have the user specifications, the software specification, keep the change management documents, keep the UATs and the results of the UATs in place, and then you can do it easily. But this is most important, that from beginning was as well for entire team, we document what we do. And all decisions, especially the change management decisions, have to be always documented, and then you have to go through the UAT process again and again. But this is a tremendous work, and you have to understand why you do it, because it's not easy and it's really time consuming. But at the end, you are going to see how easy it is to prove whatever you do it right, and you can prove it. And this is great.
Thank you very much. So we're perfect in time. So we are looking forward for our next webinar. And thank you very much, Gabriela. Thank you, everyone. And there are other questions we will answer online. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.